Hey everybody, hope your day is going well. I presented this PowerPoint at the Toastmasters meeting last night on getting started with pathways, and some of you weren't able to be there. So I thought I would use it as an opportunity to see if I can figure out how to get this posted online. Haven't quite worked out how to get my webcam picture off this lower right-hand corner, so for the moment that kind of is what it is, and hopefully it doesn't interfere too much with the presentation. Okay, so the intent of the video is, like I said, just to get you started on pathways, and I'd like to start by saying that if you're struggling with this, you are not alone. There are lots of things about the current status of the interface that make it really difficult to use. There are little tricks that you have to know that aren't explained, and if you don't have somebody available to work with, it's going to be really tough. So my goal is to hit as many of those little gotchas as I can so that you know what to do when you're getting started, getting signed up, and also give you some places to go when you do get stuck. Okay? All right. Let's start with just an overview of what Pathways is intended to be. The idea is, unlike the old program where when you started in Toastmasters, you were given a competent communicator manual and a competent leader manual, and that was it. It didn't matter why you really joined Toastmasters. That's where you started. The intent of Pathways is to give people options on where they can start. Now, when Pathways started, there were 10 paths. They've added an 11th one, which is engaging humor. Perfect for us, right? That's great. And there are more paths coming along as we go. But right now, these are the options that you have. For each one, there's additional explanations. I'll bring up the engagement just to give you an idea. All of the paths are similar in a few different respects. They all have 5 different levels. Levels 1 and 2 are fairly similar in each level. Level 1 is identical in each level, so that's something that's good to know. It really only breaks out and starts looking different when you get to levels 3, 4, and 5. Each level is going to be different in each path, and the electives available are going to be tailored depending upon the particular path that you're on. All that means is that there's a lot more tailoring involved and really gives you the opportunity to choose something that's more likely to meet what you're really shooting for in getting something out of Toastmasters. Okay, I said level 1 is the same for all paths, so I thought it would make sense just to show this breakdown. This will be the same regardless of which path you choose. There are 3 projects total in level 1. Start out with the icebreaker, just the same as it's always been. And then the second project is an evaluation and feedback project where the idea is you prepare speech on any topic, you get feedback, and then you do that speech, or you do a speech again incorporating that feedback. Most people choose to do the same speech twice. There's nothing in the project that says you have to do that. If you want to do 2 separate speeches, that's fine, as long as you incorporate the feedback that you got from the first. The other thing that you're expected to do as part of this project is serve as an evaluator. Now, for those of us that have been in Toastmasters for a while, that feels a little weird to have to do that as part of a project. But remember that what the intent is of Pathways is, in the level 1, is this is the first group of projects for a new incoming member. And so for them, it makes sense that after they've done 3 speeches, that it's time to get them involved in serving as an evaluator. Okay, third project is doing research and presenting. The idea here is to pick something that maybe you'd like to know a little bit more about, do research, and then present it to the club. After you do those projects, you submit the application to in Pathways to get credit. One of the Basecamp administrators will certify your completion. Usually it's the Vice President of Education, but the Secretary and President also have access. And away you go. You're finished with level 1 and ready to move on to level 2. Sounds pretty easy. It is pretty easy once you know the tricks. Okay, this is where I start stepping through the sequence that you need to do to get started in level 1. First thing you want to do is go to the Toastmasters International website. You go to toastmasters.org, and up at the top of the screen there will be a login button. Now if you may not have ever gone to this site, a lot of people haven't that are in Toastmasters because there's not a reason to unless you've been a club officer or something, which means you may have to create a login. If you do, what you want to do is click the login and then go to where it says forgot password. There it'll take you through a sequence of steps. I think when I gave this presentation at the club, I said that it would explain everything. The one thing that I probably didn't say correctly is that you do need to know what email address or you either need to know your email address or your member ID to get started on this. If you don't know either one of those, any club officer or district officer that your club is part of their area or division can help you with that. Make sure that you know what I would recommend using the email address. That's probably the one that's going to be easier to remember to get you logged on and get set up here with an account on the Toastmasters.org website. And there's a lot of other things that are cool once you're logged in. We'll save that for another day. Okay, just talked about the forgot password thing. You just want to click the forgot password section and step through that task to get logged in. Okay, once you are logged in, the next thing that you want to do is take the assessment. That's going to be in the Pathways section of the site. So you click on the Pathways tab and then you click on Take Assessment. When you do that, it will take you to this page. This is where what you're going to want to do is click on the Take Assessment under Basecamp. Let me just say something briefly about the other option here, which is printed materials. Toastmasters set this up with the understanding that for some people it's going to be impossible to have the internet connectivity needed to do the complete online version of Pathways. So they have made some of the paths, 5 of them, available strictly as printed materials. It can be tempting to say, oh, I just don't want to deal with the computer at all, so I'll just go down the printed route. Here's the thing on that. If you do that, you're really going to limit yourself in the long term. The printed materials, they don't have all of the tutorials. They don't have all the options as you get to the higher levels on the different projects that you can take. And once you go down that road, you're kind of stuck in that road. So even though there is short-term pain involved in figuring out how to do the online, I would highly, highly, highly recommend that you go ahead, suck it up, figure out how to do it. I'm going to help you. We'll get help in place on figuring out how to go through the online version. So please click on the left-hand side and take the assessment. That's going to take you through the online version of getting started on Pathways, and that's the way to go. If you do that, you should get, for your very first path, a $20 discount. So that $20 should sort out to 0 as you step through. Okay. Once you finish the assessment, Pathways is going to recommend some paths to you. Here's another tip. You don't have to choose the paths that they're recommending. Those are just based on the questionnaire and the answers that you gave. But for example, if you really want to do engaging humor, which makes sense for our club, you can choose this little pull down, and I'm not sure if my arrow is being seen on this video, but down below the 3 paths that it recommends, there's a link, there's a pull down menu for additional paths. You can pick any one of those, select it, and select that as your path. So don't feel like you're stuck with any one of the 3, but whichever one you choose, that's going to be your path. So yeah, and my lovely face is hiding some of the text down here that just says what I said. Again, you don't have to pick the path that they select. Okay, going to move, I'm going to pause here for just a second because I'm at work and somebody just asked me a question. So hold on here while I answer a question real quick to somebody on Skype. That's done. Okay, moving on. What was I talking about? Okay, so you've taken your assessment, you have a path picked, and it is time to move on to getting started. So you'll want to go back to Toastmasters International, select Pathways, and now you want to click Go to Basecamp. When you click on Go to Basecamp, you get a screen that looks something like this, and this is where my video is going to kind of get in the way a little bit, or my webcam is going to get in the way a little bit, but that's okay, we'll figure it out. When you see this page, whatever path you chose is going to be listed. So if you chose innovative planning like I did, that will be the path that is shown. Now I'm working on 2 paths. I'm working on innovative planning and I'm working on strategic relationships. Whichever path that you have, what you want to do is you want to click where it says Open Curriculum is the next step. When you do that, you're going to see a screen like this. It should start out at level 1. You won't see all of these checks because you're just getting started. And then where my buttons say launch, yours are probably going to say activate. And so the first thing that you have to do to get started on the icebreaker is click where it says activate. That will activate it and switch it to launch. So you have to click activate and then you have to click launch. Once you've clicked launch here, it will take you to a screen that looks something like this. For some reason, when I put together this PowerPoint, I got this blue box that says placeholder image. Usually there's a picture there of happy Toastmasters who are having fun doing pathways. I don't know why that image is broken this particular day, but that's just the nature of web applications. Sometimes that stuff breaks. Now there's a lot going on this image or this step of the process, and so a lot of people get stuck right here for a couple of different reasons. I'm going to try to cover all of them, but if you get stuck here somehow, some way, you know, this is where you want to reach out to your resources, including me, to figure out what the deal is. So don't feel bad if this is where you get stuck. So there are several things that can happen. Number one, this window can open up in a new browser, which means if a new browser window, it will open up in a new browser window. That means that if you have a pop-up blocker going, you're not going to get this open. So you have to find the pop-up blocker and turn it off for Toastmasters. The other thing that can happen is that when this window opens up, it can be a little bit smaller than it's showing right now. The window can be just a little bit more narrow. And the way you'll know that is these 2 gray arrows, the left and right, that are circled in blue. You may not see them. So what you'll have to do is maximize the window using the square the square that's up in the upper right hand corner of the browser. Just to the left of the X is the icon that maximizes the window, that makes it full screen, so that you can see the left and the right arrows, which will allow you to move forward or backwards in the project. And then you'll also have down below the pull-down menu that allows you to move around to the different sections in the project. And also hidden by my webcam is another blue box that says directions, that for whatever page that you're on in the project will have additional directions. So you can click on that blue box to get more directions. Just be sure that you click it again to minimize that section. If you don't, you'll lose the left and right arrows and it gets hard to navigate around. Okay, so then you'll just kind of start stepping through the project one at a time to work your way through it. When you're doing that, there's a couple of tips that you may want to consider. One is, you can, if you're really uncomfortable with the online version as a starting point, you don't have to step through everything online only. Eventually you'll have to step through it, but if you want another way of looking at the project, if you click on the pull down menu at the bottom of the web page and go to the Your Evaluation page, you'll see a link that says Print My Project, and that will print the entire project out. It's going to be in a PDF. You can download it to your computer, you can print it out if you want to, you can make notes on it, all that stuff. It's usually on the Your Evaluation page, but it may be one section up or below. You may have to look for it a little bit to find it, but it should be there. The other thing that you'll want to make sure that you do to make sure that you complete your project, and it's one that gets skipped quite often, is in the Assess Your Skills section of the project. There's one section where they want you to assess your skills before you start the project, and then when you're finished with the project, you want to assess your skills when you're finished. If you don't do those assessments, you'll go all the way through the project, but you won't be able to complete the project, and you'll go, what's going on? Well, it's because they want you to finish the assessment, but they don't tell you, right? So it's one of the things that I wish was a little bit more intuitive, and maybe they'll figure out a way to help people understand that going forward. That's it. That's how you get started on Pathways. Your icebreaker. Here's a couple of resources on places that you can get help. If you want to reach out to me, here's my cell phone number and my email. I don't mind at all if you try to reach out to me. If you call me on my cell and I don't recognize your number, or my phone doesn't recognize your number, you may have to leave a voicemail the first time so that I can get you in the phone. I use it for work and I get a lot of robocalls and that sort of thing, so I typically don't answer if I don't recognize the number. The other thing that I'd like to recommend for everybody is, if you have a question that seems like the kind of thing that, if it's not intuitive to you, it's probably something that somebody else may be struggling with, post the question up on our Facebook group page. I think that's going to be a great place for us to, as a club, learn what everybody needs to learn about getting started on Pathways. It's a super great program. Once we get past the learning curve, there's going to be a lot of power in Pathways. I think it's going to help us really get more out of Toastmasters than we've gotten out of the past once we get through this learning curve thing. If this video doesn't get you where you need to go, on the District 55 website, tmd55.org, there is a section on Pathways that has a ton of material. I have lots of how-tos. They've got like a 45-page how-to manual that steps you through everything, not just this starting point. There's also an online webinar right now as of May 2019. The district is hosting a member webinar at 8 p.m. on the fourth Monday of every month. And then they're also holding a second one for the base camp managers, which is typically the club president, the vice president of education, and the secretary. They're the ones that have to administer pathways in the back end. And there's a separate webinar for them that I'm probably going to attend at the end of this month. And finally, Toastmasters International, on their Contact Us page, I call them quite often to need when I'm looking for help on stuff, and the vast majority of the time, whoever picks up the phone is knowledgeable, they're friendly, they're helpful, they're patient. So it's a good place to pick up the phone and call if I'm not around, or if you're just stuck and you've stumped me or somebody else. That's it. I think you have what you need to get started here. I'm confident of that. I know some people are intimidated, but I really encourage you to just dive in, try to get started, suffer through the pain of those initial learning curve things. We'll get through this, get you started on pathways, and really let you start taking advantage of this awesome new program that's going to help us all take Toastmasters to the next level. Okay? Check in with me if you need help. Bye, y'all.